everybody, it's Chari here today, and we're going to be making a candle holder by stamping on tissue paper. And we're going to be using the Ornate Ornaments set and just some white tissue paper. So I have a glass jar here that I got from Michael's. To do this, you can use anything just as long as it has a straight side to it. You don't want it to be curved because it will be really hard to put a picture onto the side of it. It could be something like this peanut butter jar here, just as long as the sides are straight. And if you use something like this, you could always tie a ribbon around the top to cover up the threads. So the first thing you want to do is measure the height of the piece of tissue paper you need. So mine's 5.5. So I'm actually going to just use this white tissue paper, and instead of unfolding it, I'm going to leave it folded up because it's a lot easier to cut this way. And then I'm just going to mark my measurement at 5.5. So you could cut this a couple ways. You could use a straight edge and a sharp blade, or you could use a paper trimmer. Either way, you want to make sure it's still folded up, and you want to make sure your blade is sharp so that you don't rip the paper at all. So the next thing you want to do is unfold it and sort of wrap it around your cylinder and mark about how long you need it. So I just marked it, I lined it up with my grid on my cutting mat, and I drew a line. And I'm actually going to cut this with scissors. Since it's one layer, I'm afraid of ripping it if I try to use a blade and a straight edge. So I'm just going to cut it with some really good scissors. So this tissue paper has a shiny side and a dull side. And I'm going to be doing this stamping and coloring on the shiny side. And what I do is I use some removable adhesive and I just put it right onto my cutting mat. And I'm just going to stick this piece of tissue paper right onto my cutting mat, and it's going to hold it down in place straight while I do all my stamping. So I've got 3 colors of green ink here from Memento, Bamboo Leaves, Pear Tart, and Cottage Ivy, and I have the 2 branches from the stamp set mounted, and I'm going to start with my darkest color, which is the Cottage Ivy, and I'm going to start with the large branch because this is going to be the most dominant in the dark. So I'm going to start building my branches across the top. Once I've kind of done all the dark ones, I'm going to start filling in with the next lightest color, which is the Bamboo Leaves. And this is just a good way to get it nice and full without it being so busy by using all of the same color. I'm only going to use the small branch for these lighter colors. Once I get it filled in pretty good, I'm going to go with the lighter one and just fill in whatever gaps I still have left. So there's a nice top for my ornaments to hang from. I'm going to stamp these ornaments in some black ink because I'm going to be coloring them with markers. Now you could stamp them in colors if you didn't want to color with markers. That would be just as easy. And that would be great if you had a solid stamp. I'm just filling them with the little pine cone ornament. And always remember that your 2 sides are going to end up right beside each other when you put this around a cylinder. So I'm just stamping the hangers for these. And I decided to go with the kind of trendy bright colors that we see in stores these days, so I've pulled out some bright colored Memento markers here. And this tissue paper is very absorbent, and it's going to absorb this marker like crazy. So instead of going back and forth, I'm just going to color it in, trying to use single strokes and not go back over what I've already colored too much. And it's not going to look all that great at first. It looks pretty awful and it's going to wrinkle everything, but it'll all get evened out in the end once it soaks in and we seal this onto our glass. I'm going to color my pine cones in with a brown color here. And then the tops with some yellow. And I'm going to do some glitter embellishments when I'm done. So I'm going to stamp in all my hangers here, and I'm not using black, I'm using espresso truffle, just so it's not quite as stark as the ornaments themselves. Now I'm using the bow from the set and the rosebud ink, which matches my pink ornament. And then I'm going to use the stars from the set and a yellow ink just to fill in. Now you'll see when we put this on there, those stars are going to kind of disappear, but we're going to fix that. So I'm easily, just gently going to pull it up off that removable adhesive. Now to put it onto our piece of glass, I'm going to use this glue and seal product by Ranger, and I'm using the matte. You could also do this with Mod Podge, and this glue and seal also comes in a gloss finish too, so you have lots of choices of what you want to do. Now I'm just going to apply it directly to the glass. This one has a brush in the cap, which is very convenient, but you'll see later I'm going to change to a regular brush because mine is getting sort of empty and that brush doesn't reach. I'm using these ink pads here to keep my piece of glass from rolling around on my surface, just to keep it straight while I apply the tissue paper. So I'm just going to line it up. And the reason why I haven't gone all the way around is because it's really hard to do it all the way around. So we're just going to get it set with that swath of glue I put on there, and then we're just going to fold it over and continue applying the glue underneath the rest of the tissue paper. You can see I switched over to a different paintbrush so I could get down in there and get that glue. So when you apply more glue, just carefully pull the tissue paper around and try to keep it as straight as possible. You will still have wrinkles in it, it's just something you can't avoid, but it'll be okay. They kind of smooth out and they don't look that bad. They add to the character of the piece. So you just continue around, and when you get to where the two pieces meet, you want to be sure that you seal that overlap in that edge. So I'm just going to apply some of this glue underneath that edge, and then I'm going to start applying it on top to seal that edge down. So once you've got it on initially, now we're going to apply a layer of this glue and seal on top of the whole thing. And one thing I did find doing this is that the marker, the really solid areas, do tend to run a little bit. And so if you see, like, have that blue in the glue on my brush, I wiped it off, and when it's still wet, I'm pushing the little bit of blue that came off the ornament back onto the ornament. So one way to kind of avoid this is to put your glue around those solid places and then try to do the solid places on their own rather than pulling it. So here it is, and it has sat and dried. I left it to dry, and it's dry to the touch. You can see that matte finish now. It looks a lot different than the glossy finish. And I'm just going to embellish it with some stickles. And I have rock candy distress stickles here. And I'm just going to put some on my craft sheet. And I'm going to use my finger to pick some up and smear it around on ornaments. You can do this with a brush too. The reason why I am using the rock candy stickles is because they're clear and they just kind of add this sugar coating, but it's going to let the light shine through my ornaments rather than seeing specks, because regular glitter wouldn't let the light pass through because they're not transparent. So it just adds some nice shine. Now I'm using the picket fence stickles, and these actually have some white in them. And I'm going to add these to the bottoms of the pine cones, kind of like some snow. And you'll see the white stickles when there's a candle in it, but I think it's fine, just the little bit I'm going to put on these pine cones here. So I'm going to use some yellow stickles here and outline the stars, make them stand out. I also use some hot pink stickles to outline the bows on top of the pine cones, and I use some platinum stickles to outline the hangers that the ornaments are hanging down from. And then I did a few stardust accents on the branches above. So here's our finished product. And here it is with the candle lit inside. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.